In this world, there existed 9 races: dragon newts, elves, ghouls, dwarves, demons, centaurs, dark elves, beastmen, and lastly, humans. Out of the 9 races, humans were looked down upon the most and were known as the weakest race. Our protagonist, Light, was fighting against large centipedes and losing until a person of every race had come into the area to save him. These people were his friends and were hundreds of levels ahead of him, all of them telling him to leave the fighting to them. After they'd defeated the centipedes, the group left the dungeon and the blonde elf, Sasha, started to reprimand Light for going into the most brutal dungeon, the Abyss. Guru saw the exchange and teased the girl, everyone else joining in to tease her as well. Light interrupted the moment to announce to everyone that he was sorry for not being useful to the group, but Drago said that he was good enough for the group by making good tea, trying his best to comfort the boy. Humans were called the weakest, yet Light's party, the gathering of races, didn't have that same mindset and treated everyone such as Light equally. He was glad to have joined the party, happily catching up with the rest of the group. They finally found an empty and well-lit cave, and Light assumed that it was for a break, starting to prepare some tea for the group. However, they weren't here to relax. Drago walked up to him and told him that they had decided to kick him out of the party. Light misunderstood and apologized for his actions that day, promising to never do it again. But Guru clarified that it was just because they didn't need him anymore. The boy was confused as to why everyone was suddenly treating him so badly. But the Wolfman called Light an idiot for not understanding that it was all an act. Drago explained that they had let Light join because of his gift. At 10 years old, everyone gets an extremely small chance at getting a gift. Light being lucky with his unlimited gacha. Whenever he would push the button, he would get a card that provides an object to him, but the 12-year-old boy could only produce useless stuff, which Drago agreed that was the very reason they didn't need him anymore. Higher-ups wanted Light to be observed for his powers, only for him to end up being both useless and a human. Sasha admitted that she was only being friendly for the sake of her country, Guru jumping in to make fun of her because of it. Light asked them what they were talking about, but they said too much. Drago ordered the Wolfman to clean up the mess, explaining to Light that it was an order from the higher-ups, as Guru charged forward to slash at the boy with his claws. Light dodged it just barely and moved back, still wanting to believe that this was all a joke. But the evil looks of everyone in the room made him believe otherwise. The Wolfman continued his attack as the boy tried to make his escape deeper into the cave. An arrow was sent towards Light's leg, causing him to fall to the ground and Guru to charge forward in amusement and kick the boy in the gut. He screamed in pain and fear. The dark elf Xion jumped in to say how she wanted to use her torturing magic. Sasha yelled that they all agreed to lie that Light died from a monster attack, otherwise they would be suspicious. Guru stood over the teary-eyed boy, ready to give one last slash to kill him, until Light started to drag himself away from Death's arms. The dwarf Nano told the Wolfman to just kill Light already, while all Light could think about was how he didn't want to die. The group stared with either amusement or disgust until Light seemed to have activated a teleportation trap and disappeared right before Guru could kill him. Light looked around in disbelief before falling onto his back in exhaustion and crying about wanting to see his family again. He didn't know what he did to deserve all of those things that just happened to him, being raised by and seemingly being friends with everyone in the group until it was all found out to be a lie. The boy grit his teeth and started to curse in a rage from the betrayal, vowing to kill them when he could. However, that would mean he would have to get out of this dungeon alive while being a level 15. Monsters started to surround the boy as he realized that they were led by his blood and were level 1000, something he couldn't even comprehend beating. There was nowhere else Light could run while being the level that he was, but he still didn't want to die and tried to use his gift Unlimited Gacha. He yelled at the gift to give him anything to distract the monster so he could meet his family again and get revenge on the ones who betrayed him. And suddenly, a light appeared, blinding the monster and confusing Light. The monster still tried to run at and eat the boy, making him believe that it was over, until a voice called out to reprimand it. A woman appearing from the light to slice the dog-like monster to pieces, while Light stared at her in awe. The mysterious woman that had defeated all the monsters in the area gracefully landed on the ground as pieces of the monster flew all over the place. She stood opposed to the boy who was sitting on the ground, shock covering his face as he stared in disbelief and silence at the woman who had saved him. The woman stared back with an unreadable expression until she suddenly kneeled before Light and looked at him with a worried look. Light stumbled over his words until the girl finally spoke. She started to compliment the boy's features, calling him her lord. and she explained to him that she had healed his injuries and apologized for being selfish because of it. Light looked down at his body and realized that all of his wounds were gone and the pain had gone away like it was never there in the first place. The woman asked Light to use his supposedly beautiful voice to tell her his name. Once he had introduced himself, she stared at him with light in her eyes as she started to repeat his name, calling it wonderful and noble. She announced to Light that she was going to devote herself as a maid to doing everything for him, swearing eternal loyalty to the boy. Light didn't know how to react to the situation unfolding before him and started to sweat as he sat there and thought before the maid asked him if she could have the privilege of introducing herself. The woman finally introduced herself as a super ultra rare card, the level 9999 Seeker Maid Mei, and explained that she was summoned by Light's gift, surprising him. Mei vowed to always be in the boy's care even after death and to make sure that nothing would lay a finger on his skin. Light still didn't believe that someone as powerful as her could come out of his gift, his words being interrupted by the woman begging to not use any formalities in front of her. He did as told and Mei immediately switched back to a serious expression, asking if she could use her identify ability to make sure his gift wasn't a defect. Light gave her permission and the woman inspected him, complimenting the boy for his powers and explaining how it worked. His gift, Unlimited Gacha, was affected by the thickness of the surrounding magic it absorbed to produce cards, meaning that while he was producing useless cards on the surface, it was understandable as to why he would have summoned someone like Mei in the deepest part of the dungeon. Mei was impressed that her master was able to come down to the lowest floor by himself just to summon her, but wondered why he didn't have any weapons. The boy knew her words were incorrect as he started to cry and correct the woman, explaining to Mei how he had been betrayed by his teammates. The maid had hugged Light and comforted him, before asking him to order her to kill those who betrayed him. But he told her that she couldn't do that because he wanted to do it himself after he became stronger. He asked Mei if she thought a human like him couldn't do it, but the woman kneeled down and told him that she would assist him in his wish, having full faith that he could do what he wanted. Light thanked the maid and proceeded to use his gift once again in this world's biggest and most evil dungeon, the Abyss. This marked the start of his revenge story. 3 years later, in the deepest part of the Abyss, Light walked through the hall of a castle filled with many upon many maids as he complimented everyone on their good work. All the women thanked him and when he left, started to scream in excitement at how the boy spoke to them. A woman beside Light asked if she should shut them up, but the boy was fine with it. An angry voice could be heard in the distance, outside in the training center of the place as Light walked out and found 3 women, 2 of them arguing with each other. Light called out to them and they all stared at him with happiness. These 3 women were known as Nizuna, the true vampire knight, Eri, the forbidden mage, and Aoyuki, the monster tamer. He told them that there was something he had to tell the 3 of them, but his words were interrupted by the presence of a hellhound, making Light freeze up for a moment because of the memories from 3 years ago. The 3 women stood in front of Light with a rage in their eyes as they were ready to protect him, which effectively scared the monster. Light told them that he was fine and started to pet the petrified monster, before it was announced that the prey had been caught. Everyone started to cheer as they walked off with evil looks on their faces, ready to enact the first part of the revenge. Guru was seen at the major city of the wolves, Akira. He was greeted by many people around him in excitement while Guru loved all the praise that was being given to him. He sat in a bar and drank sake happily, still being complimented by the worker at the bar. Guru started to brag about his skill and how a person should complete their job with the best results, causing the wolf next to him to ask about the secret mission he did with the gathering of the races all those years ago. Guru couldn't say much since it was a job given by the country, but he was internally amused at how he had gotten so rich just by killing Light. A sudden, ominous feeling had coursed through the wolfman as he felt his senses smell death, and decided to focus his thoughts on how he was going to be at the top soon enough. Mei walked into the room and caught the interest of Guru as he asked what she wanted. The maid begged him to show her where Light last went to for a big compensation, surprising Guru since he didn't know that the boy had noble blood. He put the thoughts aside as he was too busy thinking about having some fun and selling the woman when he was done, telling Mei that he would accept the quest. Guru lied and said that he was good friends with Light and made a false promise that he would escort Mei to the dungeon safely. But the wolfman knew what he wanted to do with the woman when they were there. Accompanied by 10 other beastmen, the 12 of them entered the same cave that Light was supposedly killed in. Guru explained how they were ambushed and Light had triggered a teleportation trap before they could save him. And Mei kneeled down with tears, praying. He nodded at the other wolves as they blocked the only exit in the cave as they all stared down the woman with evil looks. Until Mei spoke about her anger of not being there for Light earlier when he was betrayed. Guru was shocked by her knowledge and jumped back in defense, asking her who she worked for. Mei reminded Guru about how she swore her loyalty to Light, and gave a powerful aura strong enough to make everyone in the room shiver and freeze, including Guru himself. Suddenly, a voice called out to Mei how it wasn't her turn, causing Guru to whip his body around at the familiar voice. Once Light had pulled down his hood, the wolfman stared with shock at the man who he thought was dead. Light waved and gave a bright smile to Guru as he excitedly told the wolfman that he was there for his revenge after 3 long years. Guru stood in shock before he composed himself and started to laugh, still believing that Light was level 15 and couldn't win against him. The wolfman didn't know how Light survived out there, but believed that the dragon newts were going to owe him one if he brought Light's corpse back with him. The boy scoffed at how brash and ignorant Guru was being, but Guru still believed that him and his men were stronger than the two in the room, looking down on the two just because they were human. Guru laughed maniacally and called the boy naive for thinking that he could get his revenge against him even if Mei was there to protect him. The wolfman ordered the others to block the exit and kill the boy. 2 beast men immediately dashing toward Light with hungry looks until their heads were suddenly cut clean off by Mei. Everyone started to shiver in fear, but Guru ordered them to calm down as he still believed they couldn't lose. Light sighed at the fact that Guru was still looking down on them after that scene, even after 3 whole years. Guru was offended and started to announce that they, as monsters, could easily raise their levels compared to humans who supposedly couldn't do the same. In this world, one's level determined their value in the world, and Guru felt that he was on top at level 158. Light didn't want to lose, even as a human who didn't naturally have specialties and high levels like other races. The boy asked why there were heads rolling on the ground, but Guru believed that it was a trick and ordered everyone to prepare themselves all at once to attack the small boy. In such a small amount of time, Light used his staff to swiftly beat up every single one of the beastmen, including Guru, sending them all flying, while Mei watched in the distance with adoring eyes. All of the beastmen coughed and groaned, trying to recover from the hits as they tried to get back up, but Light had no reaction at all to the situation, and instead was looking down at Guru with a cold look, asking him what was wrong. Guru looked up at Light with a rage until he suddenly threw up from being hit in the gut, coughing as he struggled to get back up onto his feet. He started to chant to himself, trying to remember his hate for humans while he was in disbelief that he, a monster, could lose to the inferior race. The wolfman screamed at the boy to not look down on him and pulled something out from a bag, surprising Light as he watched Guru jump back and reveal a small pearl. He called out for a person named Fenrir to be summoned as Guru smashed the pearl into the ground, Light appearing and blinding everyone else. Guru grinned as he explained that the item was called a monster ball and could hold a high-level monster inside, meaning that it would release the monster once broken and follow his every order before disappearing in around an hour. He grit his fangs at the fact that he had to use such an expensive trump card against the boy, but felt the power of the monster that curled around his form, its large canine body roaring loudly. The monster was level 500, and all of Guru's minions looked at the scene in awe, somehow holding hope once more for their situation. Guru still believed that Light was using tricks against him and threatened to make the boy regret for not killing him immediately. But Light interrupted his moment by asking if that was really his trump card, considering he thought that level 500 was still too weak against him. Guru laughed in disbelief and asked if Light had lost his mind, claiming that Light must have just been using a magic item and he should beg for his life, just like all those years ago. The boy stayed silent, while the wolfman continued bragging and said that he might change his mind and let Light live if he made him laugh. Everyone else in the room giggled in amusement, until the small boy sighed and looked forward with a smile, telling Guru that he would stay in place and let the boring trump card do its thing. Guru felt offended and ordered Fenrir to turn Light into ashes as the canine monster used its breath as a cannon attack. Usually it would be a one-hit kill, but Light just stood there and didn't get a scratch on him, wiping off the dust while Guru stared in shock. He knew that the only way to explain the situation was a huge gap of power, but he just couldn't believe that Light somehow had a far higher level, his thoughts interrupted by Light saying that it was his turn. Pulling out a card, the boy was ready to show Guru the real Fenrir at level 9,000. A wolf made out of pure light appeared from thin air and stood proudly behind Light before being ordered to kill the dog behind Guru, simply just blowing air in the direction of Guru's monster and freezing it immediately before it shattered into pieces. Light praised Fenrir and started to pet the large dog, while Guru fell to the ground in fear, asking how the boy had something like that. Light explained with a smile that he didn't even need to summon Fenrir, because he himself was level 9,999 after all these years. Guru stared up in fear at Light, his body shivering. His minions behind him were also scared for their lives, as one of them said that he had previously believed that a human's average level should be around 100. Light explained that Mei was also level 9,999, making Guru realize that Light was the real deal, and he wasn't messing around with his power. He was still in disbelief that the boy in front of him was really the Light he knew before, remembering him from 3 years ago. Guru was more focused on the fact that his appearance hadn't changed, but the boy explained that he used a wristband of immortality that he got from his Gacha gift to stop his growth, just so he could remember his feelings of despair, sorrow, and rage from all those years ago. Guru stared at the boy, knowing that he was a monster who could kill him, and immediately slammed his hands onto the ground in a bow. He apologized for being rude and tried to make an excuse, saying that he only tried to kill Light because it was an order from the country, claiming that Light could do whatever he wanted with the other beastmen as long as Guru lived. Everyone else in the room was offended by Guru's action, angry that he seemed to only care about himself when he continued to beg the boy to remember the good memories they had together. Light finally spoke and said that he would ask Guru something before the whole letting him go thing, and asked about what country they meant when they mentioned something about a master. But Guru seemed to not know anything at all. Guru said that the beastmen didn't have as many skills as the other races, meaning they weren't told anything about the mission. The boy asked the other wolves if they seemed to know anything. Everyone starting to jump up in the hope that telling Light would let them live. However, that wasn't the case, as Mei quickly sliced them all to pieces, knowing that all of their intentions were just to lie to Light. Their blood splattered all around Guru, while the wolfman's body shook with terror as Light asked one last question: if he thought that Light could win against all the countries on the surface with how strong he was. Guru admitted that he truly believed Light was powerful, but it would be almost impossible to win against all of them, because of all of the years of history and legendary grade weapon and armor they possessed. Light hummed in thought, before smiling at how Guru had told the truth and agreed that they would definitely have limits despite their power. Suddenly, Light pulled out a teleportation card to use, and the Light enveloped the group, confusing Guru until they disappeared and were sent somewhere else. Guru held his head in fear, eyes closed until he realized that he was still alive, and looked around in bewilderment, wondering where they were. An extremely large room with hundreds, if not thousands of people of all races who stood organized, leaving enough space for Light to walk toward a throne. He sat on the chair as everyone bowed in his presence, before they were asked by the boy to raise their heads and display their status boards. In seconds, the message boxes appeared all around the room, as everyone in that room were levels above what Guru could comprehend. Evil eyes from around the room were all staring at Guru, while Light explained that, in the 3 years he was down there, he had raised all of these people just by using his own power. The boy then asked the same question from earlier, of if he could win against all the people on the surface. But Guru couldn't answer and could only feel the life in him leave his body, making Light feel confident. The wolfman managed to speak and asked if the boy was something like a god, causing Light to realize how the sound of that label felt good to him. He wondered what he should give to the world with his gift, and was about to decide based on what the truth was about why the other countries wanted him dead. Light was going to find out whether he should become a gift holder that bestowed happiness, or the one that gave death and despair. The boy stood up from his chair and announced to everyone in the room that they were going to rise up from the abyss and seek truth and revenge from the people on the surface. A few days later, after Light's revenge against Guru, before the team set off for their next plan, they came to the boy's former village to visit the graves made for his parents. Light stared at the graves with a saddened look, holding a bouquet of flowers before placing it on top of the dirt of the graves. The reason why the village was now Light's former village was because someone had destroyed it. This was also not the boy's first time coming to the surface, his first being half a year ago, way before his revenge against Guru. The abyss was deeper than what was originally thought, and Light's teleport skill was unable to be used to get quickly to the surface. After a long time of figuring out how to get around the restrictions, the group was finally able to get out of the abyss and went to Light's village. However, the boy would stare in horror at the remains of the village he once knew. Nothing was left behind, and there was no person left alive. Light falling to his knees while he wailed in grief. After burying everyone's bodies, he used the power of everyone with him to try to find out what happened to the village. But there was no sure trace of the truth to be found. The only positive that Light saw in the situation was that he couldn't find the bodies of his siblings, meaning that there was at least a chance of them being out there alive. causing Light to dispatch people to gather information and a culprit. A knight in gold armor walked up to the boy and asked if he was done so they could depart immediately and not have to sleep outside for their first day of traveling. A woman called out to the knight, who was known as Gold, and reprimanded him for speaking so casually to Light. This woman was named Nimumu, and she told him to watch his attitude and speak with respect toward the boy. But Gold explained that formality sounded awkward, asking the girl if she wanted to sleep outside herself. Nimumu tried to claim that she didn't care where the group would sleep as long as she was with Light. But the knight tried to explain that it would probably be best for the sake of the boy that they should avoid camping outside, making the girl realize his point. Gold had also warned Nimumu that she should lessen her loyalty to Light in the case that he would come to dislike her, causing the girl to start crying in worry, but she still vowed to fulfill her duty as a servant. Light started to chuckle at the sight in front of him and reassured both of them that he would never hate any of them. These two people were Light's guards, while he acted as a traveling adventurer on the surface, being both level 5,000. The plan had started, and the three of them would set off for their journey to find information on things, and Light's next target was Sasha. Eri was already preparing for his revenge against the elf girl, but they would have to initiate this adventurer plan in the meantime. The reason for that was that he didn't want to start a war out of nowhere, instead choosing to investigate the strongest in every country to learn about the enemy and their potential gifts. Nimumu tried to tell him that there wouldn't be anyone else like Light to exist in the world. But the boy explained that, because he existed, there was always a chance of another like him, meaning that they should be extra cautious, especially for this master that all of the countries are scared of. Even if Light's village's destruction was because of monsters or bandits, he knew that it had a connection with this master. A rage started to fill Light's small body as his fists tightened, knowing that he would burn the world down. Gold and Nimumu shivered in fear before the boy sighed and calmed down, putting on a clown mask and telling the others that it was time to go. All three of them started to fly through the air toward a certain direction. Nimumu asked Light if they were heading toward a city in the dwarf kingdom, to which the boy confirmed. The city of Dagas, a place where a dungeon was discovered and people would usually be gathered at. Gold told Nimumu that she should be careful of what she calls Light when they reach the ground, the boy agreeing and letting them both know that they should call him Kudo when they got there. He explained that he would be known from now on as Kudo the Adventurer, a boy trying to raise his rank and reputation. Light knew that he couldn't have gone with his original name in case the former gathering of races would get wind of the situation, and cause his revenge to fail. Dagas was chosen as the city to go to since it was far from where the group would move around in, and they would find more information about this master. They were planning to raise their adventurer ranks in the meantime, while Eri would complete the Sasha revenge plan. Once the group had arrived near the city, the three of them had landed in the forest and walked through the forest in the direction of the city. A rustle was heard in the distance during their walk as the group noticed a carriage being harassed by some dwarf bandits who were trying to rob the people of the carriage. While Light and Nimumu were hidden in the trees well, Gold's armor was very shiny and could be seen a mile away. The dwarves immediately noticing the knight's presence. The bandits ordered for the group to come out and stared at the group with evil looks, especially Nimumu since she was a woman. Light told Gold to take on the people hiding in the trees without killing them, while he and Nimumu would go for the parent and kid. The hidden dwarves finally came out of the bushes and charged at Gold, wanting to steal his armor, but all of their weapons immediately shattered in contact with the knight. The dwarf stared in disbelief at his weapon breaking until he was interrupted by Gold flicking him away and sending the old man flying. The Golden Knight announced to the rest of the dwarves that he would teach them the spirit of a knight. Light told the rest of the dwarves to stand down, but they didn't believe that the young boy had any power against them since they were over level 200. The boy told Nimumu not to kill them, as the dwarf bandits realized the woman was right behind them before she swiftly knocked the man out. Light kneeled down to ask if the parent and child were okay while they just stared in bewilderment and awe, asking who their group was. After getting patched up, the family allowed the three of them to ride in the carriage after saving their lives. The father asked them if they were famous adventurers, but Light admitted that their group was going to register as adventurers for the first time once they reached Dagas and rank up as fast as possible. After some time on the road, the group had finally reached the Dwarf Kingdom and were dropped off at the entrance. The man told Light that he had an inn that he ran that was mainly for humans in the case Light would ever need it, to which the boy thanked him and they quickly bid their goodbyes and entered the city. Gold and Nimumu admired the place as it was their first time seeing a city on the surface, and the three of them continued to make their way to the guild. Finally, they arrived and stared at the large building of the Dagas Guild. Entering through the doors, there were people of all races seen all around the building, either chatting with one another or finding jobs for themselves, seemingly livelier than the city streets. Light told the two that they should finish their registrations right away. However, Nimumu was not satisfied with the rank that the person at the desk gave Light. The girl didn't care for her own or Gold's rank, but felt offended by an F rank being given to Light, despite that rank being the one given to every person registering as an adventurer. Nimumu did not care for the logistics and slammed her hands on the counter, demanding that the person at the desk would make Light into a triple S rank, until the boy himself told her that he didn't mind starting from F, and apologized to the person at the desk for Nimumu's behavior. They went outside after registering, and Nimumu was on the floor in a defeat, feeling bad after making Light apologize for her actions. Before the group had went off to find an inn, but not just any inn. They went to the inn that was owned by the person that they had saved earlier in the day, Carnal's Inn. The three of them were immediately greeted by the father and said that he would show them the best hospitality that he could. Carnal was interrupted by Light, saying that he had 3 selfish requests while they were to stay there. The first was to stay for 1 month. The second was to get the highest floor all to themselves, and the third was for not even one staff member to go up while they were there. Light pulled out a bag filled with 300 gold coins and asked if it was enough, and insisted that Carnal think of it more as a gift than a payment. The man thought for a moment before bowing and accepting the requests, guiding the 3 up to the highest floor. After arriving and finally being left alone, Light took out some cards to use on the room they were in to make it silent from the outside, as well as nullify any outside magic used and be able to detect people around. Gold asked about the money only for the boy to explain that the money was, in fact, real, and he had obtained it from their comrades acting as merchants on the surface. He didn't want to use counterfeit money at this specific inn, and they would get trouble if it was used anyway. Light could also make infinitely more money from his gacha skill, but he didn't want to destroy the economic balance of society. Nimumu jumped into the conversation and tried to tell him that, no matter how strong he was, the possibility of something happening wasn't zero, and she tried to suggest sending more people from the abyss. The boy shot her a cold look and cut her off, asking if she was trying to rob him of his revenge, a menacing aura hovering around him. The girl kneeled on the ground and apologized for her behavior, starting to tear up as her body shivered in fear. Gold started to laugh heartily as he told Nimumu that Light was capable of achieving things with his own hands. Light took a break and comforted the girl, apologizing for lashing out at her and scaring her. But she agreed that it was her fault and wanted to display her loyalty once again. The boy sat on a chair as the girl took off his shoe and kissed his toe, a means of displaying a loyal slave, which everyone else in the abyss requested to do, even though Light himself didn't really like it and saw it as embarrassing. Gold broke the weird moment and teased the girl for what she was doing, but the boy let the 2 of them know that they were going to prioritize going into the dungeon the next day until Aries' preparations were complete. Light shined on the land as morning came, and people were crowding around the land nearby the dungeon. Markets lined the sides, selling provisions, food, potions, weapons, everything that an adventurer could need. And this was just the entrance to the dungeon, the 3 of them admiring the scene around them. Light looked over to the people gathering to walk through a large gate, seemingly entering in order, and Gold noticed that it seemed to be only humans, beastmen, and dwarves. The boy explained that it was because elves were not welcome around the area since elves and dwarves never liked each other. People around them started to stare at the group, wondering who they were since they stood out so much from the others. But Light decided to see it as a positive thing. He felt a little embarrassed with the formation that they were in since Nimumu was close behind him. But Light did not object to the idea since it was a suggestion from a companion of his. Suddenly, a group of people in hoods cut the line, catching the interest of the 3. The one in front was small and well-trained, while the other 2 were less